Okay, welcome everybody back to the Lineball channel. My name is Max. I hope you are all doing well. We've got an interesting video today. You're probably looking at Vanguard Invitational and thinking, Max, wait a minute, we're halfway through the King of the Hill Shootout Invitational. What are we doing back here? Well, we have been doing a statistics series for our first ever tournament, which was the Vanguard Invitational, spearheaded by Ardit, Alex, and Hoy, who have been beavering away, building a stats portfolio and project to go through that tournament. So if you haven't checked out the Vanguard Invitational, the whole tournament is on the channel. You can go back and watch all of it right now. And this stats document, Ardit, Alex, and Hoy have been working towards building really for over the last 6 months. And Lineball, for those of you who watch the channel, it's a brand new game. It's kind of a mix of curling and bowls on a pool table. And so when we were doing the statistics for it, we really had to kind of build from the ground up. And so everyone kind of had their different roles on what bits we had to do. And today we are sharing what Ardit has made as an interactive piece of data, a really great presentation of how the tournament went, and you can go and use this. So after you've watched the video, after we've gone through everything, go into the links in the description, explore this document, see everything Ardit's done, and find some little Easter eggs. So Ardit, I'd love to welcome you back to the channel. Thanks for joining us.
Hi Max, thanks for having me, man.
No problem at all. I really appreciate you and all of the boys putting in all this effort to bring this to life. So I believe in the last episode, because this is the 3-part series, you can go to the playlists below and view the first 2 parts to catch up. We saw the start of this at the last part, but just could you give us a quick recap as to what we're looking at here?
What we're looking here is a combination of mostly all the stats collected by myself, Alex, and Hoy, just culminated in a sense of interactability where any user can come on, launch this URL you can see at the top, and just click on teams, see how they've done, see how we progressed in a manner of accuracy, how well people played, where we lost, and how we lost. And I'm just a very avid statistician, and I just wanted to have a interactable format to see how I did myself and how all my competition did as well, basically.
Absolutely, and it couldn't be any more prevalent with the King of the Hill tournament taking place at the moment and our upcoming Line Ball League, which I'm very excited to announce soon. So looking into the stats side, it's really important to see what was prevalent. Was it attacking shots? Was it defensive play? Or was it more sort of quite a neutral game where people were kind of ebbing and flowing? So Ardit, as we come down into this first section, as you scroll past a nice little picture of me there, we go into this first chart, and I'm seeing good shots, neutral, I'm seeing accuracy. Could you kind of break down everything I'm looking at in this screen?
Okay, well, if we first start off with just the team selection, we can see that we can easily change between the team selection. Currently, we can see now we're going to switch to Daddy's Clackers, and we can switch to Lineade and so forth. If we just stick to Lineade, for example, we can see that how did Lineade players actually improve with time? What this shows is that my team, for example, has played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, and it's a matter of controlling some variables that I created manually, which kind of culminates good shots over every other shot, and then it does a running average, which is more of a statistical term, to see how you progress. So it's a weighted average, and it's a better way to see how players improve. As you can see, I had a poor start at the beginning with a 0% accuracy, slowly collated myself all the way to a high 70% average, which is not a true average, but it just shows a weighted progression chart. And yeah, to the right of that, you can also see the summary stats. Max, if you want to also then filter by tournament stage, the little checkboxes if you want to play with that.
Yeah,
So,
let's have a
of course,
look.
if you want to change to your team, since your team also played on the grand finals.
Yeah,
And
so
yeah,
I'm just changing it here where we've removed the grand final stat, but then I can bring that in and it updates it. And in fact, we can even just take off the group stage and look at how we did in the late game.
hmm and Sim actually did quite well with a weighted average of 90%, so quite good. And we see Chris, who joined only at the playoffs actually do quite well as well, compared to most other players who started off with the other games, group stages, struggling to improve. So we see that Chris Hope was quite a dark horse later on.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to flick through quickly the last couple of teams because, yeah, I think accuracy was very much in collation with where teams finished. So, for
Hmm.
example, Brandon here and Timmy, they've, and spoilers for the tournament ahead, finished last place and had some of the lowest
Hmm.
accuracy. Whereas if we go to the Wet Bandits, they finished second. And as it loads in, Byron and Hoy were more consistent, had more sort of good shots, and
Hmm.
went the distance. But yeah, it's really interesting seeing it lined up with all their games and the longevity of it all.
Hmm. And yeah, we just have some further context below and uh, just some informatics here and there. So we can see that for context, each team played five group stage games. Each qualified team then played at least one playoff games, except my own team, Light who played two games. And of course, there was one grand final game. And if you scroll just a tiny bit up, Max, just the little eye icon. If any person wants to read that, there's a bit more information there, just about some insights and some findings, which this link will be provided in Max's video, and you can just read further or pause and read here.
Yeah, that is really interesting. It's so nice to see all the little bits of information that are kind of
Yeah,
outliers and the bits that really stick out as consistency. Because what I'm noticing is a lot of players are very similar to their teammate in terms of that sort of accuracy percentage, and the lines really
yeah,
follow each other as well from each
100%.
game. It's like both you and Alex improved at the same rate. Weirdly, I think it was my team.
There was
There
an
was a
anomaly with this team, yeah, which
yeah,
will be mentioned later on.
there was a bit of a change, and I think Sam was kind of the king of the neutral shots, whereas I was always kind of going for it. But yeah, that's really interesting. So let's scroll down then into the next part, which I believe in the last episode we only really just got into this kind of at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah.
So I'm very new to all of this. What am I looking at here, Ardit?
Quite a bit of information here. First of all, I wanted to see how players actually or teams did for all the frames that they played. Frames being all little games that they played in each stage. So group stage, game one would have a selection of frames. As you can see, if you scroll a tiny bit further down, we can see the index, say group stage G1 F1, F1 referring to frame one, G1 referring to game one. And then you can just quickly turn off those labels as they're quite hard to read, just for the sake of viewing it. It'll take a second to load. That's a Tableau for use on Salesforce. But what this shows is how hard did teams actually fight. And the reason why I wanted to look at this is because did luck play part in some players' wins? And the reason why I wanted to see that is if you switch to your team, Max, really quickly.
Yeah, because from remembering how this tournament went,
Yes,
we
yes,
got a
yes.
very lucky group stage, didn't we?
Yeah, you see that the first three frames, if you enable frames again. So we see that group stage game one, frame one, all the way up to frame three, that was fought against my team Lineade. If you hover over any of those three bars, you'll see that there was an opponent against. Should actually, if you slowly turn off labels, it should enable the labels. Yep, there we
Oh
go.
yeah,
We
here we
see that
go.
Maxim played against Lineade, taking two shots for a win. It's just a quick way to see some quick information. But it was a point of seeing that some teams won from other players' mistakes. And I believe your team contributed quite a lot from that. So I wanted to see how hard did your wins take, or how hard did you lose? If you go to Red Hot Chili Peppers, a very unfortunate team. They fought quite hard but still lost. As you can see, a lot of their games took all the way till seven shots, but they still lost. Meaning they played slow games. They didn't take risks since you can see that their one shot frame loss just towards the middle. Uh, you can see that took one shot, meaning they made a mistake early on. But most of their games, they didn't make mistakes early on. And the green one, that one shot, means that Team Alice made a mistake very early on. So they had some quite hard fought battles, but they still lost. So, which goes to show that they weren't as aggressive as they should have been, and were still inaccurate with their shots. So a very unfortunate team, but I think it shows that it makes a bit of sense how they came out of the group stages and didn't last as long as other teams.
Yeah, that
And we can
is
see as
really
web bandits as
interesting
well.
because I think that so basically the higher the bar line goes for your team, the more you had to kind of work for whatever place you finished.
Yes.
So for just quickly heading back to my team, all these nice low lines mean
Hmm.
effectively on some of them where it was an opponent's error, we were gifted. So these were gifts, these early ones.
Hmm.
And I'm really interested to look at Alice because I feel like they went deep in a lot of games,
Yes.
just
Yes.
from memory.
Hmm. Yeah, you can see a lot of their games were hard fought wins and hard fought losses as well. Let's see if we go through them. I'm not too sure who had the most draws. I think the most draw conditions probably were from Team Alice, if I remember correct. Um, yeah, I believe so. And you can
Oh
see
wow, there's
that,
a lot here at the Wet
uh,
Bandits. That's a
yeah,
lot that
Web
make it
Bandits
over.
had quite a varied amount. They didn't lose easily in the beginning, but same at the end. So there weren't any sort of trends with this team. So they played quite evenly throughout the whole tournament, all the way to the finals. So yeah, it's quite cool to see because if you go to your team quickly, Max, you can see that you started to have harder fought battles towards the end. So it just goes to show that the skill level towards the end was improving, the tensions were rising, neither team were trying to make mistakes. So most games lasted towards all 7 shots, which is interesting to see.
Yeah,
There's a trend for you to think about, basically.
yeah, and I completely agree with you. People warmed into the tournament as it went on.
Hmm.
Like for example, here you and Alex started off kind of with a
Many,
lot
many
of
mistakes,
errors,
yeah.
and then this hugely deep game at
Uh,
the end, which
against
is just
yourselves, yeah,
yeah, that was
taking
a
yourselves to
brilliant
the
one.
finals. That was a long draw conditioning game,
I do
100%.
remember that one. That one tired me out for sure. And Daddy's
Mm-hmm.
Clackers feel like a team that were somewhat
Mm-hmm.
consistent,
Mm-hmm.
but made more errors than I expected. I think. And yeah, Alice were the team I felt the worst for because they had these
Yeah.
three big draws and so many games here. Going all the way to the seventh shot for them. Wow. Building this, I mean, this one I haven't seen before. So, based off the information you had just from all the shots taken, how do you build this?
I mean, there was quite a lot of effort involved, especially since Tableau and Power BI, those data analysis tools that you see used in the real world, takes quite a lot of time to learn, especially if you don't use it on your day to day. So I spent quite a lot of time learning different logistics or logic flows within Tableau. And at the base level, it uses SQL queries. So you just sort of investigate the forums, scour the internet, and definitely something anyone can sort of self-teach themselves. A lot of this, took a lot of time to figure out how to use something called level of detail to filter out certain conditional data, especially since as simple as the graphs look, to get a specifically what I wanted took a lot of time with how the data was collected. But just to end that statement, what made it easy, I believe, was the fact that the collected data, as I think we saw in video one, was a bunch of ones and zeros. So at the core of it, it's a lot of summations to sum up certain values and then draw out certain tables, basically.
I completely agree because if you go back and watch episode one of this sort of three-part series of us exploring the sports statistics, it was halfway through the tournament when we did that one. It was just focused on the group stage, but looking at it all, it was just ones and zeros in a Google sheet, and then it went from that to what you're seeing today. So it's fantastic and it's really impressive at it. So let's move on to the next one because as we scroll through, this is all completely new. I think in part two you just started
Hmm.
working on these
Yeah.
graphs, but this one below for the factors impacting accuracy, this is totally new. So can you just break
Yeah.
this screen down for me?
Yeah. So in the initial section, we explored how people's accuracy improved, but then I wanted to see what really impacted accuracy. We have quite a bit of text just to the right of the title, and two things really drew my interest with what impacted accuracy, which is what we see in the first graph, attacking, and how that impacted accuracy. And what we see here is a graph showing total shots per frames in orange and how many times a person attacked in that frame, which, as we can see, We can change. We can see how people played, how many times they attacked. We see Timmy didn't attack much. He had one attack, and it sort of impacted his accuracy. Here as well for Brandon, we see attacking did impact his accuracy, but not in all cases. If we want to see a good example of a good attacker, we can go to yourself, Max.
Let's have a look and see how I did compared to. Oh wow, yeah, that's very
Yeah,
different.
you're a big attacker with a lot of successful attacks, and you can see uh, grand finals game one frame 10. Your actually did drop there to 33%. So potentially impacted by your higher attacks. But lower frames, you attacked successfully, meaning that you either committed a attack shot which didn't put the ball out, or you had a attack shot enhanced or perfect, which also got your ball into the zone, which is what we are counting as accuracy. Any ball that lands into the play zone to score a point is what contributes to a higher accuracy. Uh, Chris is also a good attacker if we switch to Chris
Yeah,
really quick.
let's have a look. But just before we do that, Ardit, if
Yeah,
there are any terms that the viewers don't understand,
hmm
if you go back to the first two parts,
yeah,
Alex does a really good job of breaking down what each type of shot is, because an attack shot is
hmm
effectively where you're putting one of your balls into the score zone whilst also removing or attempting to remove an opponent's one as well. So basically, a defensive shot is just trying to get yours in safely, or it could be a neutral shot. So this includes everything. So these ones in purple are the ones where you're really trying to like make a play against your opponents. So it is very interesting seeing how defensive some other players were. But yeah, wow, break down Chris's shots for me. This is interesting.
yeah. So Chris started all the way in the playoffs, and we can see that he had quite a lot of attacks for a new player. If we go to let's go to Team Alice, for example, any team who played in the group stages. Just if you click Aditya, then after. Not many attacks in the beginning, or even towards the end. While Chris started off uh, as immediately attacking, he constantly attacked with high success, which was interesting to see. I think he was quite a dark horse and contributed quite a lot to Maximum Impact's, again, spoilers, Maximum Impact's grand final win.
Yeah, and
So,
looking at this, I'm
yeah,
seeing that in the whole of the playoffs, Shana only played one attack shot. And that almost means, I think, when it got to the playoffs and literally losing meant you went out, I think a
hmm
lot of teams kind of went very defensive, didn't they? Because they just didn't want to
yeah,
go.
yeah,
So it's really interesting seeing like a couple of attack shots here and there spread out, and then just the moment it got into the really serious time, it just
hmm
drops to
hmm
absolute zero. Let's. I'm really interested to have a look at how your team did, but let's quickly have a look over Daddy's Clackers as we've not checked them out in a while. And Anki
yeah.
wasn't playing as many, but I feel like when he did, that his were really strong.
Yeah, they succeeded.
And your team. Let's have a little
Yeah, the
look at.
big attacker was Alex, 100%, and he
Oh
was quite
wow,
successful as well.
one of the most attacking in
As
the
you can
whole
see,
tournament.
towards the end, he had quite a lot of success. Most of his shots were attacks. And if you switch to me, very few attacks, but very high accuracy.
But I think you two agreed that because one thing that you
hmm
you don't get from listening to the tournament commentary was the fact that all the bits we were discussing as players and teams. And I know going into this first tournament, Ardit and Alex, you had a strategy of being very
Yeah,
much non-flexible. Ardit, you did the defense, and Alex did the attack, and these
yeah,
stats prove that to no end.
100%. I think it goes to prove that I definitely did good with the defending, making sure my balls got into the zone, and we'll see in a bit the relays. But Alex also did a great job on the attack. But we saw that was not enough since it didn't take us to the final. Hence, as you said, we were inflexible in a sense, and we should have had a range of both.
That's really interesting. So, is there anything else you want to say in this section before we move on to the next one?
I think that is everything. But before we scroll down, just really quickly, the text where it explains relays. Since relays is, I believe, a term me and Alex came up with, but not something the channel might have heard. Relays is a term where we are successfully shooting, or we are shooting a ball into the zone while hitting a neutral ball already out of play into the zone as well, but also getting your own ball into the zone. So you're scoring a net score of two. That is a successful relay. A failed relay is getting the already neutral shot into the zone, but not the shot that you're taking at the current moment. So that ball now becomes a neutral, while the other one now becomes a point in the zone, which is a failed relay.
That's really interesting because yeah, in if you've been watching all of the line ball videos, you would have seen on the channel we did like a school of line ball pool with all the rules and definitions and meanings, and relay isn't one that's in there, so I'm going to need to add that to the video and explanation because it's quite a specific circumstance. But I think the viewers would be surprised how many times it happens in games where people are trying to do that, and the table starts getting messy, and there are balls in that neutral play zone that you want to start working with. Because we haven't also landed on a good name for the thing we're coining the three ball swing, where you have at least, you know, the score switches by 3 points in your favor for any permutation, either you getting 3 in or getting 2 in and removing an opponent's, or getting 1 in and taking 2 of your opponents out. That's kind of the name we've got for that. So as line ball's still fairly new in its construction, we are building names and definitions as we go, and the relay and the failed relay is Ardit's latest creation. So it's great to see even more sort of terms spawning off of it. So let's have a look at your the relays and recoveries then.
So to switch about with the players, we'd probably also need to go back to the graph, but we'll start off with line 8. So you see that I completed a lot of successful relays, meaning that as I let Alex attack, I always told him to let me recover the neutral balls. And you can see that I did quite a good job at recovering the neutral balls that we had in the zone, scoring us a net score of 2. Well, Alex unfortunately had quite a few failures. The reason could be multiple things, and it could be that since he focused more on attacks, maybe he wasn't as accustomed to recovering neutral balls, and since he failed them more. I want us to scroll up and change to Daddy's Clackers really quickly.
Yeah, let's have a look at them.
It shows something very interesting with Anki Dams.
Oh wow, that is very different. Oh my, what does this tell me?
This is quite interesting. It's something I also expanded in the informatics section for this section. But another thing is, because he succeeded so much, I would assume he would have higher accuracy than John Barrett. But if we quickly scroll all the way to section 1 for me and change it to Daddy's Clackers, we see that in orange, Anki actually overall had a lower weighted average on accuracy. The reason for this, I believe, could be potentially that Anki was causing most of the neutral shots, but then also recovering them as well, which suggests that why his accuracy was lower in the first place. But it just also goes to show that he had enough skill to also recover his shots. So, and if he didn't, we would see that his accuracy would drop even further. So Anki in that sense had a positive impact, but I think Daddy's Clackers had much more impact if Anki Dams didn't make those mistakes in the first place.
Yeah, I think Anki's key thing that he was doing was he was like playing a lot of shots that was really close to the line of the score zone, but he was under hitting a lot, which then I think weirdly, John and Anki, they didn't really go after each other's balls. They kind of just stayed with whatever was theirs. So I think Anki was playing ones that kind of went near the end zone and basically just used the next ball along to just finish the job, because if you're hitting onto another ball, that cushioning means you can actually get both in quite comfortably. And you could probably make a full highlight reel of just Anki Dam's successful recoveries. That's huge.
Another team we should pay focus to is your team as well, Max. And the reason I bring attention to your team is, as the winners of this tournament, I want to see what caused this. And I think this also goes to show something really interesting and why your accuracy was so much higher than Sam's in the initial section. The reason for that is I'm assuming Sam would be making most of the mistakes, as you saw from the initial stats, because his accuracy was lower. But then you would go ahead and recover most of those shots with successful relays. And that's why you had the anomaly of not being relative to each other. As you saw previously, as you mentioned, each team was relative to each other because they would try to relay off each other's shots, trying to recover their mistakes. But with you, you didn't fail to recover. Hence, you would succeed in your own shots and also in recovery of Sam's shots.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I feel like when we were playing, Sam was playing it very similar to Anki in the way that he was under hitting, but
Mhm.
often because I would usually be the next player going along, I would kind of see it as something I need to do to then try and work it either closer to the zone or just bring it in directly. And I
Yeah,
think that's what separated me and John, because he wasn't working off of Anki's ones. He was kind of
yeah.
almost treating them as separate entities.
Mhm. Yeah, and we see Chris as well. He didn't have time to contribute as much to the idea of relays and recovering shots, but he had more failures than successions. But he still had major influence in the team with his high 75% accuracy in addition to his high attack. So he was quite influential in your team.
Interesting. Is there maybe one more team example you'd like to look over before we move on quickly?
We can go over Wet Bandits really quickly.
Yeah, we haven't seen them in a while. Let's see how
Yeah, yeah.
Hoy and Byron do. Oh my goodness, that is
Yeah.
a lot.
So
Wow.
this is interesting, and the reason for that, you see how close they are to each other with their relays. They sort of are equal on their recoveries and equal on their
Yeah.
failures. And a lot of teams had a bit of a difference. You know, we saw your team and my team. We had a bit of differences. If you scroll all the way up to the first section for me and switch to the Wet Bandits, they were the team that had the closest uh, sort of progression together, which suggests that they, as we can see on the right side, their accuracy over all three stages, 63% and 64%
Wow.
at the end. If you disable for me grand finals, it should change in a moment, 60 and 66. If you disable playoffs for me, just give it a sec. That's just Salesforce. 56 and 61. So always very close. And towards the end, they just averaged off to very similar amounts. If you can enable both. Yeah. So I believe there's a interesting correlation between teammates, basically, that a team is heavily impacted by each other and their accuracy. If one player plays good, that means there's less balls in the neutral zone. That means uh, there's less opportunities for relays, which is a good thing because relays are dangerous and cause risk to lowering one's accuracy. And the core thing to winning line ball is having high accuracy, which is scoring into the score zone.
Yeah, and this is so telling for the Wet Bandits just being the most synergized team. I remember
Hmm.
on the days of playing, just Hoy and Byron just felt like they were singing from the same hymn sheet the whole way, and I couldn't really put
Hmm.
my finger on why. And now seeing all these stats, it just proves everything that we were already feeling. So that's really, really interesting. No, thank you for sharing it because this was not a stat I was thinking about covering. So
Hmm.
this last bit, this is very
Yeah.
interesting to me. So what's all this about?
So I wanted to call you out, Max, but you had to go and prove me wrong. Here I just sort of explained that you guys deserve the win somewhat. It was a very close call in my opinion because
It
I
was.
feel like the introduction of Chris Hope was what drew you guys to the finals. We had a very close game in playoffs game two between my team and yours. I believe with how much me and Alex were improving, as you saw from the first graph, if we didn't have now a term of dub as influence, in the second in the below paragraph we can read that really quick.
Yeah.
Influence can be counted as the players who manage to keep shots in the scoring zone and contribute to shots and reduce an opponent's score, i.e. attacks. So someone that scored into the zone a lot and also reduce a opponent's shots into the zone with attacks is someone that had influence. And Chris definitely had a lot of influence, scoring and also attacking. I think without his introduction, it would have been a very close call, and you might have not even made it to the finals potentially. That might just be me being biased towards my team, but it goes to show that also you had a lot of influence, as we can see in the last sentence. Max's amazing influence as well. If we quickly read, yeah, so dark horse player Chris Hope, and also I believe there was a factor of luck where uh, players made mistakes early on, but you also had a lot of influence of making sure those relays happened. You didn't allow teams to make use of your mistakes, basically, by successfully recovering any neutral shots. So I would say, yeah, in my opinion, statistically, You are deserving of the crown for this
Well,
tournament.
thank you. That's all I could have ever asked for. Because knowing that it wasn't a complete fluke and that we did somewhat deserve it is great to know for the team. So thank you, Ardit. I think it certainly felt like this when we played. We did get a good run, and I think in pretty much all sporting endeavors, right, there's a certain amount of riding the momentum, riding a bit of fortune that kind of takes you through. Because right now in the current line ball tournament, everyone will be watching the King of the Hill Shootout Invitational. We're not doing so well. I had a pretty good first set of games, and then since then I've not been playing very well. So it just goes to show what momentum and a slice of luck can do for you, and how tournament to tournament things change. So I'll be interested to compare how I've done in this one versus what happens in the King of the Hill as that tournament continues to progress. Will I pull it back, or will I just stay in the shadows? So no, it's really interesting, and I love that bit in relation to influence, because you're completely right that taking attack shots, being the initiator, taking initiative, and being accurate and proactive, the other word I would use is proactive, all plays into it. And yeah, I think Lineade, your falters were, I think, around your flexibility with you and Alex. You were very much stuck to roles, and there are certain points in a line ball game where it doesn't matter what your role is, you have to either attack or defend. And so being more flexible, I mean, just watching the early King of the Hill shootout games, where you play on the same team once again, there's a lot more flexibility, and you can see that you have some way better games, and I can't wait to specifically compare your team tournament to tournament, and how you taking more attack shots influences all that we're reading on this screen. Well, was writing this last bit, did you expect this, or were you expecting to kind of prove that I didn't deserve the win?
I was trying to prove it wrong all along. I wanted to see whether this one was more of a luck draw, but I believe there was definitely skill on uh, both you and Chris. Sam, I think, did quite well, but drew the team a bit back. Uh, but then you still carried. So I believe you still would have had a chance to win the finals even without Chris. But I feel like it could have been a very, very tight game, or even potential loss on your part. So uh, definitely deserving the win. Gotta thank Chris for that.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely. We got
I
lucky
have to
getting
give it to you,
him.
Max.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate it, Ardit. So this is now available for people to see, right? So this is publicly
Hmm.
available. It's not locked behind
Yeah.
any paywalls, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm going to link it in the description. I'm going to link it in the comments. I'm going to post about it everywhere. Go and have a play. Firstly, go and watch the tournament so you can kind of get an understanding of how we got here. I'm assuming you've probably done that already if you've made it this far through this specific video. And have a play, see what everyone did, see how it influenced things, because this document here really tells the story of the tournament in a really different way, because all of those moments and just turning points are articulated through numbers, and you can infer all of this juicy information. So Ardit, thank you for doing this again. You can find Ardit's links for his LinkedIn in the description if you want to collaborate with him, work with him. Same with Hoy and Alex as well. The boys will all be back on the channel through the next few weeks on the King of the Hill series anyway, so you're not going anywhere exactly. But Ardit, are there any final thoughts or summary or about this journey as we bring it to a close? This has been such an adventure for you.
Yeah, first of all, again, like always, thanks for having me on this channel, Max. I think it was quite a journey to learn all of this. As a math student, or coming from a maths background, making use of my statistics and my logical abilities to just make this all work was quite an experience, and I wish to be able to just expand on this skill in a real life scenario with real life data like we have here. And my last comment is there is a sneaky Easter egg in this dashboard, but we won't display it. So it'll be your job, the viewer, to find it.
And if you find it, leave it in the comments, but don't leave it too obviously. Like, put a comment that says Easter egg spoiler below, and then, put a couple of enter spaces and then write what the Easter egg is, because then we'll know that you got it. but without spoiling it for other people. So that would be pretty cool. Give everyone a chance to have a look around for that, because straight after this video audit, I'm going to go see if I can find it. So thank you all so much for watching and exploring this journey with us. I appreciate the stats videos have been really long and really in-depth and very analytical. So I hope you appreciate all this extra effort we've put in to really bring this to life. We're going to do similar videos for the King of the Hill series. They're going to be, again, quite far away from the tournament itself, but we want to really get them right and explore all the information, because line ball, we're a group of mates who just have a bit of fun putting on some tournaments and doing the stats. So if you want to support line ball in any way, we've got a Patreon. I'm going to put that in the description as well. I'm going to put that in the comments, because the more you can support that, the higher quality we can deliver everything, and also the faster too, because we can pay to cover our editing and stat time. That's all that really the Patreon's for, is to help just improve the production value at the moment. There's a couple of cool little perks in there for you too, but the Patreon, we're really looking to just take line ball to the next level, so Ardit can do more of this incredible stuff, because Ardit, Alex and Hoy are all so talented, and we just want to flaunt their incredible work on this tournament in more grander spaces in the line ball scene. So thank you all for watching. There's loads of links below. There's so much you can do off the back of this series, and we'll see you on Thursday for another one of our tutorial videos. We'll see you on Sunday for another YouTube short, and we'll see you next Tuesday for the King of the Hill Shootout Invitational Episode 4. Let's see how it goes. Will the tournament end, or will we keep on going? We'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Ardit. We'll see you soon.